Good evening, everyone. If you have been with us for a little while, we apologize about that delay. We had some technical difficulties getting this on the correct Facebook page, so thanks for joining us tonight. Tonight is part 2 of a 2 coffee chat series, I guess, that we had today. We had one this morning as well. I'll be walking us through our return to school plan and answering questions along the way. Let me outline our plan for those who are unfamiliar with it so far. We know that next school year is going to look different no matter what mode of operation we are in. As of today, it is our plan to be back in school with all students the first day of school, but that plan is contingent upon our county rating. If you are unfamiliar, Ohio has a rating system across the state of Ohio that assigns public advisory ratings to different counties based on their local infection rate. So Miami County, for example, has been at level 1 or 2 since its inception. We have not gone to level 3. Our plan is such that if we remain at level 1 or level 2, we will have all students in school daily in all of our schools with many safety precautions in place, social distancing, face coverings required to protect our staff and students. If Miami County were to move to level 3, then we would go to a blended learning format. What that means essentially is that students would be divided into 2 groups. One group would be in school in person on Mondays and Tuesdays. The other group would be in school in person on Thursdays and Fridays, and all students would learn online the days they are not in school. What that does for us is that it allows us to create more social distancing on buses and in classrooms to reduce the possibility of infection spread. If we got all the way to level 4 in Miami County, which no county has been at level 4 yet since the system began, if we got to level 4, then we would go to remote learning, which is similar to what we did last spring. We learned a lot from last spring. Our teachers did an outstanding job providing great learning opportunities for our students in a very short window of time with very little preparation or training to do so. We've learned a lot from that, and we know that we have some improvements to make and work to do to make that an even better experience should we get there. And we hope that we don't get there, but if we need to, we know that it will be better for all of our students and staff this year. We provided are providing a couple of tools to make that transition between models workable so that learning is continuous between home and school no matter what operational mode we're in. 2 things to that end. One, we are going to a one-to-one initiative this year. So every student in Troy City Schools will receive a Chromebook to take home with them nightly and to bring back to school the next day to support their learning. The second piece of that is the learning management system that we're going to be using this year. A learning management system is really a one-stop shop where students, parents, and teachers can find, or teachers can place, all educational materials that a student may need. Whether they are web links to resources, documents for students to read, links for books, educational videos, teacher-created or otherwise, but that will be the one-stop shop where all assignments can be found and that connection tool for teachers and students. So Chromebooks and Canvas learning management system, 2 big changes coming for Troy City Schools this year to provide that seamless transition from home to school learning as needed. We hope those modes of operation don't change frequently. We hope they don't change at all, but if they do change, we hope they don't change frequently so we can provide some continuity for everyone involved. As we created our plan for the return to school, we relied on several documents and expert opinions on how to create that plan. The 3 main resources, and you can find these on our website. We have a lot of our resources on the website, including a slideshow, a blueprint for our return, videos from this morning's discussion, and a couple of other things in there. School calendar can also be found there. But all those resources can be found on that website. And there are 3 main resources for our back-to-school plan. One being guidance provided by the Ohio Department of Education, and you can find that document through the link in those resources. The second piece was from the Ohio Department of Health that had very clear guidelines for schools with our return to school. And the third was from the American Academy of Pediatrics. So, for example, one of the things we have to do this school year is to create as much social distancing as possible. 6 feet is the golden standard, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, and anytime we cannot achieve 6 feet of distance, then face coverings are required as a mitigating factor for students and staff. So anytime students are on school buses or in hallways or common areas or in classrooms when 6 feet of social distancing can't be established, they will be required to wear face coverings for grades 3 through 12. And again, that 3 through 12 guidance came directly from the American Academy of Pediatrics. The reason being that younger students sometimes have difficulty keeping their hands away from their face if they're wearing a face covering. Those students are certainly recommended to wear face coverings, and we would ask parents to work with their children to kind of get them used to that idea, and we hope to see students wearing them in grades K through 2, but again, it won't be required for those grades, just at grades 3 through 12. Again, social distancing will be a key part of that. There are many things we still have to figure out. Some are very specific to buildings, some are not. Many questions about how lunches will work and recesses will happen. Those are still questions we have to have as well and have to figure out. But I can guarantee you that all students will receive a healthy school lunch. They will have an opportunity to play at recess. Those things will remain important. We just kind of have to figure out how to do them. So you will continue to see guidance coming out from the district. Much of that in the future will come from building principals that is specific to your building. Things such as school orientations, especially for those transitional years when students are moving from one building to another. So you can expect all those similar school experiences. They're just going to look different this year. Mr. Fawn, we have some questions we can get into?
We have a lot of questions we can get into.
Right.
How will you social distance in large schools with large populations such as Concord?
Social distancing will be difficult to achieve in some areas, and that's why face coverings are such an important part of our plan. As much as possible, we would encourage teachers to think creatively about getting students out of those classroom spaces and into other spaces. Concord, for example, they have a gymnasium, a cafeteria, hallway spaces, outdoor spaces, libraries. So we will encourage teachers to explore those opportunities and get students in different places to learn as often as possible. But it will be a challenge in some places, and again, that's why that face covering requirement is there.
Regarding the online academy, are schools going to release their individual plans before the deadline to sign up for online? I'm guessing they're talking a lot about courses and offered and that sort of thing.
We had a lot of questions this morning about the online option. I believe I mentioned that in my discussion about our levels. If I didn't, we do have a full-time online option available for any parent, grades K through 12, who is just uncertain or not sure about sending their child back to school. We do know the return to school does bring some inherent risks. We are doing everything we can to mitigate those risks through social distancing and face coverings, but there is still some degree of risk for everyone involved. But that Troy Online Academy is an option. So schools won't necessarily have different plans for that. We have a registration link open right now for any parent who wants to sign up for the Troy Online Academy. It is our intention to provide a full complement of educational choices for our students that get to deep levels of learning and are certainly in classroom learning is probably the best option, but again, for those who have those concerns, we need to have a high quality online platform available for them. We're looking at the elementary grades having similar grade levels assigned to a specific teacher, so a group of kindergartner or first grade students would likely have a teacher assigned to them as a self-contained kind of model. Where that gets a little different is at the higher grade levels, so grades 7 through 12, typically the harder ones. We don't know, whenever you schedule high school courses, you have a list of courses you offer, but you don't know how many sections you're going to have. You don't know if you're even going to be able to offer certain classes because they're driven by student enrollment. So we can't offer, sitting here today, I can't say that every course in our high school course book, because there are probably over 100 of them, are all going to be available for online learning. There may be a circumstance where high school parents may have to make some choices about which courses they want to do online learning for, and we also have the ability to make it a mixed opportunity for our high school students. We can't provide transportation all day long throughout the day. We'll continue to provide transportation in the morning or afternoon, but if there's a high school student who needs to come in for, let's say, an advanced level chemistry course that cannot be offered online, but they can take some other classes on an online format, we can also provide those personalized opportunities and chances for kids. So a lot of our staffing decisions have to be driven by student enrollment, so we really need to see how many, especially high school, how many high school students are going to sign up before we can know fully that every course will be offered with a specific teacher online. Really, that online platform is designed for parents who have underlying health concerns, autoimmune deficiencies, those kinds of things that they have concerns for their child or the parents at home.
When is the teacher's first start date?
So, great question. One of the things we've done this year is revise the school calendar. That new calendar can be found on our website. We have pushed the start of school, the first day of school, back for students. It was going to be August 19th. That start date is now pushed back to September 8th. That does a couple of things for us. One, it provides professional development time for our teachers. We know that this year is going to look different. No matter what mode of operation we're in, we're going to have to think about teaching differently, providing that content on that Canvas learning management system, and thinking about just how teaching and learning may look and how it needs to look, so that, again, if we have rolling shutdowns or quarantine situations, students can continue to learn online with teacher support. So there's a lot of learning our teachers have to do this year with the one-to-one program, with Canvas management learning system, with a blended learning model, and that changing that start date allows us to do that training with our staff. Also, figuring out how buildings need to operate. Each building is a little bit different in its makeup and what its lunchroom looks like, so there are a lot of procedural things that buildings will have to walk through and kind of redesign this year, so there will be a lot of work to do in buildings as well. Also, we understand that August is certainly a challenging month with the heat in our buildings. Only one of our 9 buildings has air conditioning, so pushing that start date back to September 8th allows us to get through some of the hotter weather and provide some relief from having to wear a face covering in those very warm schools.
Have there been any staff, athletes, or students that have tested positive for COVID-19 in Troy schools?
There have been a couple of students who have tested positive. To my knowledge, no staff members at this point.
Can you provide updates? Can we give them a number of online students who have signed up for online as of today, and then they would like to continue to get updates up until the July 31st deadline?
I can tell you that as of today, there are approximately 294 students, I think it was, that have signed up for online courses. 58 of those have been high school students. I guess we
could tweet it or put it on Facebook or something like that. We kind of dealt with this before. What high school honors classes will be available for Online Academy? That's a matter of need.
We hope that all of them can be, and we're working on different models for that. But that could be a challenge, again, just depending on how many students. For example, I mentioned that 58 high school students currently have signed up for online learning. We have 1,300 high school students in the building. There are probably very few schedules that are identical. Students take a variety of topics, whether it's ceramics, drama, band, advanced level chemistry, or advanced level chemistry. So there is a wide variety of course offerings at our high school. So again, sitting here today, I can't tell someone that every option is going to be available to them. And we, again, hope that the driving factor for parents choosing that online option is the question of safety. Do they have an underlying health condition? I would not advise parents to choose online learning as a better option than classroom learning. I think just inherently classroom learning is a richer experience. But again, that online option is available for those that have those underlying health concerns. And people may need to make some choices about which one is more important, to go online or to be able to take ceramics in person.
Will we have traditional textbooks?
We don't have many traditional textbooks currently. We would still utilize the ones we have, but many of the assignments and learning materials will also be in Canvas.
Will students still have specials, and by specials, art, music, gym, those types of things, recess and lunch? What precautions will be taken for each of those?
Well, that's a very large question, and the precautions look different for many of those things. So recess and lunch, yes, students will still be fed lunch. We will still have recess for our students. We will encourage social distancing on playgrounds as much as possible. We will have to remind students when they don't social distance to wear their face coverings. But we also look at recess as an opportunity for students to kind of get a break from having the face covering on. Lunchroom procedures are going to look different. Students will be asked to choose a place to sit and to stay there throughout the year, so that if we have to do contact tracing with the health department because someone tests positive, we will know who was around them on a daily basis. And they will also look different in how they're seated in the lunchroom. The high school, for example, has 500 or 600 students at times in that lunchroom. it has to look different this year to achieve more social distancing. So we may have students eating lunch in the commons area, the courtyard, hallways, different places just to achieve that social distancing. Those are many of the questions that we're striving to answer as the month of August continues. There's still a lot of work to do there. The other part of that question was specials. Yes, one of the things we're working on right now is working with our K through 12 department heads for art, music, PE, on what learning looks like for those specials. We do want to continue to provide a rich learning opportunity for our students and have them involved in art courses and music courses and physical education courses. It might look a little different this year, though.
And this would be a good time to talk about this in terms of the online academy and semester by semester. If homeschooling is chosen for the first semester instead of the online academy, would students be welcome back at the semester break if things change for the better? Could you just kind of discuss how our semester and why we have to do it semester by semester?
Yes. We ask parents to make a semester-long commitment to either online or in-person learning because the big hurdle for us moving forward is staffing. Our teachers are anxious to know what they're teaching. Guidance took a while to come out, so it took a while to develop. Our plan is out there now, and now people need to make a choice on in-person or online learning because once we see those student numbers, we will have to know how to staff them, and we have work to do to establish who is going to teach those subjects and communicate that to teachers, and also give them time to prepare and plan for the oncoming school year. There's 1 month of summer left, essentially, to make those choices, and there are still many choices to be made. So we're going to ask parents to make a commitment for one semester because, again, having 60 first graders sign up for online learning is different than having 30. We would need 2 teachers for 60, 1 for 30, so we have to make those decisions soon.
I've read the mask mandate. Children under 10 do not need to wear a mask. Are all students grades K through 12 required to wear a mask? Could you talk about the grade levels and why the grade levels are the way they are?
Yes, so we are following the advice of the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Ohio Department of Health, and their advice is to have students in grades 3 through 12 wear face coverings. Students in the lower grade levels, K through 2, are highly recommended to wear those face coverings, but it depends on that child and their developmental level and how appropriate that is for them. Some of our younger students may struggle with touching the face mask, and that amount of face touching may override the safety and security of having that face covering on. So that's why it's grades 3 through 12. We chose that because that's the direct advice of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Is there a second part to that question? Or?
I don't believe so, no. We're getting a lot of questions. We would ask you to go back to look earlier in the video. We're getting a lot of questions about what classes will be offered online, whether honors and college credit classes will be offered online. We address that, and if we need to, we'll address it later, but we have already addressed that, and it'll be in the FAQ we have coming out. Do we need to register our kids if we want them to go back full-time, or do they only need to register them online if they plan on doing the online classes?
They only need to register online if they're going to choose the Troy Online Academy. Otherwise, we will expect that they will be here in person. Yes.
How flexible is the Online Academy for parents that work during school hours?
We know that for parents, it's going to look different. Some parents have more ability to help their children in the morning hours. Some parents have more ability to help their children in the evening hours. So one of the things we're working on, and there's a link to this in our documents regarding the Troy Online Academy, that kind of shows a model day, what a day would look like, a schedule might look like. And you'll notice by looking at that there are times on that plan for teachers and students to have direct contact. So we think it's very important for students to have that direct connection to teachers. And through the online platform, it won't be that students are on a computer for 6 hours straight throughout the school day like they're attending in person. It's more like there will be times assigned for them to have direct connection with teachers so they can ask questions of the teacher, get clarification from the teacher, but many of the learning materials will be provided for them on that learning management system called Canvas. So they can access demonstration videos, websites, different information they may need, and all of their assignments to work on, and then get that individual support or group support even with other classmates with the teacher during those assigned times. So there's a couple of model schedules on that link for parents to look at.
That kind of leads us into the next question. If we go to blended or strictly online days, how are working parents expected to have their children live chats with teachers? Morning or afternoon isn't an option when both parents work all day.
those are certainly challenges for different families and for us here as well. I think parents may have to think creatively about how to accomplish that, and we again understand, learning from last spring, that that is a significant challenge for some. So that's why it's our intention to get that schedule out early. Mentioning that blended schedule, we need to probably this week divide our students into those two different groups and communicate that to parents so they will understand if we have to go to blended, what days their children will come to school versus being online. So we'll communicate that very soon, as well as a calendar for the school year that, again, we may not use if we don't ever have to go to blended learning, but if we do have to, we want to make sure parents understand what that calendar and what that schedule looks like.
This is not a question, but perhaps you could address it. Required is not mandated, so you don't have to send a masked child to school. That would be against the child's rights.
Well, mask face coverings are required for Troy City Schools in our back to school plan. So that guidance was highly recommended from the Ohio Department of Health, also from the American Academy of Pediatrics. And to quote almost directly, social distancing is a big part of this. So 6 feet of social distancing is really the gold standard. If students cannot be 6 feet apart, which in many classrooms they cannot be because there isn't enough space for them, then 3 feet is an acceptable minimum if the students have face coverings and are asymptomatic. That is almost a direct quote from the American Academy of Pediatrics.
And I mean, we have other rules regarding dress code. Students have to wear shoes and shirts and those types of things to school anyway. Will a COVID test be required to return to school if the student is having symptoms?
No, I don't think so. It depends on what those symptoms are. So in our guidance document, it describes the return to school protocol, and I can't recall off the top of my head, but there are several, it's almost like a flow chart. If this, then that. So depending on how many symptoms they may have, any student who is suspected in school of having symptoms will be checked in the clinic, and if our clinic staff, by the way, we have licensed nurse practitioners and registered nurses in all of our buildings. If our nurses believe that there's a possibility of COVID, we would contact the parents. We would recommend that they talk to their family physician and go from there. But it's outlined in our guidelines, and what I would ask the people to take a look at that document on our website.
When will all this info about specials and recess be available? How can we make a decision about in-person learning when we don't know that information?
I'm not sure what information we're talking about. We are going to have lunches. We are going to have recess. Those won't look much different, I don't think, from a typical year. So all those things will still happen. It's just they're going to look different from different buildings. As I mentioned earlier, for the rest of the month of August, parents could expect to see more communication from building principals regarding those plans. I don't think in a typical year we communicate what recess looks like. I don't think this year would be different, but if parents have those questions, they can certainly contact building principals.
What about single parents who work a lot if we go to level 3 or 4?
Again, I know it may be a challenge for some parents based on our levels, but we currently have situations where we have extended absences due to snow days and those kinds of things, and we have to make plans and adjust.
You can address a couple of things with this next question. How will you support kids who are on IEPs? You could probably also talk about gifted learning and English as a second language and those things in general.
Yeah, I want to refer back to that earlier question too about how can we support students whose parents have struggles with that. We are working with local agencies, including the Troy Rec and the Lincoln Community Center, to look at what options we can offer for parents that have significant need in those areas. And we'll continue to explore those options and hopefully communicate those out soon. In terms of students who have IEPs, we know that no matter how we operate this year, it's an important part of our job to provide personalized learning opportunities for our kids. So we have students that have a variety of needs. We have students that are learning the English language as a second language. We have students that have individualized educational plans because they have specific learning disabilities. We have students that receive gifted services. So we have a variety of needs across our district, and our challenge and our goal and our duty is to provide personalized learning opportunities for all of our students no matter what their needs are. Specifically with students with IEPs, the IEP team may need to meet to look at those placements and what services are provided. That happens annually with students on IEPs anyway, so that would have to happen for this school year as well.
If we go to the fully online, for those who had, so if the levels change and students had been learning in person and we were to go to level 4 eventually, who will be teaching those all online classes? Will it be the regular teachers that they had for in-person leading up to that point?
Yes, if we have to shift to remote learning because we are at level 4, students would have the same teachers that they had in person.
This is a repeat question. Again, when will we know what CCP or honors classes will be offered online? We're going to have to wait and see how many people. A question we had this morning, Latin classes, again, that's going to depend on how many people we have signed up.
I want to add that it's our goal, and we're in discussions internally about that right now, it's our goal to be able to accommodate all of those needs. Again, when we create the course schedule for the high school that says Latin, if no students, or if very few students sign up for Latin, then we wouldn't offer Latin because we couldn't justify staffing that position. Now, typically we have many students sign up for Latin in our high school. That's just one example. So if we have 2 students out of 58 request online Latin, that creates a real challenge for us to provide that. We're still looking to solve that, but that's the situation that we need to understand. Again, the driving factor about online learning versus in-person learning shouldn't be the courses that are available. It should be the health concerns. If they are able to be in school and don't have those underlying health concerns, certainly in-class, in-person learning is a better option. If they have those health concerns, then I think the more important factor is that they have those health concerns, and now we have to figure out a class schedule that's going to meet their needs.
I'm confused now because I thought earlier we had the choice of all online or all in person. I would prefer the hybrid model for my daughter if available. I don't think that's the case. There is no, you can't choose the hybrid model. Correct?
Well, I think we're talking about a couple different things. I think we're talking about if we move to level 3, then we go to the blended model for all of our students. I think what she's referring to, I think it's a she, is referring to is that a high school student, for example, could take some classes in person and could take some classes online. Using that Latin example, we could, again, we can't provide transportation all day long for all students, but if a high school student can transport themselves, could they come in for Latin and take that class and do the rest online? Yes is the answer to that.
They can choose individual courses. They can't choose an all hybrid or all blended learning mode.
So I think what will help, especially the high school parents, understand is that when we get the final requests from the high school, particularly, and junior high as well probably, but particularly high school, we're going to contact those parents, look at those individual student schedules, and tell them what we can do, and make that direct contact with parents. That's going to happen. And I think once that happens, parents then can choose, yes, that sounds good, I'm in, or no, that's not going to work for me, I'm out. When we talk about personalization, we're trying to do the best we can to make sure that every student's needs are met. And I think that we have left that part out. So yes, high school parents, you will receive a call, an email, some kind of direct connection from us saying, this is what we're looking at, this is what we can do, and work to revise that.
These are the course offerings online. Would you like to come in for this period or that period?
Right.
Which is another reason why we have to set this a deadline of July 31st to contact. We already have 50 students we're looking at potentially offering this to. What is the reason for the staff reporting a week later? Are they getting paid during the week of August 17th even though they are not working? This is a huge accountability to taxpayers if they are not working but getting paid.
So the week of the 17th, teachers are not required to report. What we're going to do this year is not take any calamity days. So typically in a school year, we would have 5 calamity days where if we have a snow day, we don't report to school. This year, we're taking all those calamity days and all our professional development days and front-loading them. So that first week of school essentially are our calamity days. By the way, our heat index days, when we don't have kids come to school, those are calamity days. So many teachers come in throughout the summer. We typically have to tell teachers to stay out of buildings so we can finish cleaning them, to give them time to finish that work. So teachers, if there's a perception that teachers aren't coming to work, that is, I can tell you from experience, not correct. Our teachers put in quite a bit of time, and what I was referring to about the calamity days, those will be front-loaded, so that first week of August are the calamity days. Any calamity days we have throughout the rest of the school year will not be calamity days, students and teachers will be online teaching and learning. There'll be online learning days.
Well, elementary, and I guess not just elementary, but all the students who choose in person, will they all be using the Canvas program full time in class?
Yes, all of our teachers and all of our students will be using Canvas.
So if we don't sign our children up by July 31st and we decide before September 8th that it is just too risky to send them, our only option is to unenroll our children and then take them to a different online program. Or if we choose in person and feel things are getting too dangerous to send them, but the school isn't closing, our only option is to unenroll them from Troy and take them to a different online program until the semester ends. I'm guessing the question is, do they have any other options if they change their mind?
Well, that's a difficult question, and here's why it's difficult. To say that to one parent, to two parents, that's possible. But to say that to 100 parents or 200 parents is impossible. We cannot reassign teachers positions in the middle of a school year, especially if we have people opting in, opting out fluidly throughout the school year. We have to be able to staff those positions. So that answer goes back to our open enrollment. If we accept someone for open enrollment, first of all, we don't accept halfway through a school year, particularly for that reason. We don't shift students around from building to building because we have to staff those positions. And to be fiscally responsible, we have to make some of those decisions and limit some activity. Ultimately, if parents are that dissatisfied with what we are doing, yes, they could unenroll them.
If in-person learning goes remote, purple, basically, level 4, will there be live teacher instruction or only links to videos or web links from another content creator, or does remote mean self-study with teacher support?
I think those are two options. It wouldn't be full-time, it wouldn't be logged into a computer for a 6.5-hour day continuously. There would be times established for students and teachers to connect directly. So yes, students and teachers would have live interaction. This idea is called synchronous and asynchronous learning. There are some things that have to happen in real time with the teacher. That conversation, that coaching, that help. There are other things, and this happens today already. When a teacher assigns homework, when a teacher assigns an article to read, when a teacher assigns a project to work on, that is asynchronous learning. It doesn't happen alongside the teacher. It happens when the student has time to work on it. So the same thing would apply here to this Canvas learning management system. There would be opportunities for students to do that asynchronous work, but we also have to make sure that they're connected directly with the teacher for live support and coaching.
With online learning, will students have the opportunity to interact with other students via Zoom and that sort of thing?
Yes, that's one of the things that we have to make sure we work into our plan, that students can interact with each other and still continue to do group work and group projects and have classroom discussions.
How will speech therapy or other therapies be acclimated this year?
Acclimated? I'm not exactly sure what that question means.
How will speech therapy and maybe physical and occupational therapies, how will we do that if we do it online?
Again, those specialized services are part of an individualized educational plan, so those discussions should happen with those teams. But in a nutshell, when it's in person, those services will still occur. And if it's online, again, we have to meet the requirements of the IEP. So we may assign speech and language therapists to do online, or even set up individual meetings if that's the need. But those will be those will be IEP team decisions.
This question is specifically about sports, but I'm sure you could refer to all extracurricular activities. If a student chooses to do online learning, they can do any and all of our extracurricular activities, correct?
Yes, anyone who signs up for online can still participate in extra and co-curriculars.
What happens if a staff member or a student gets COVID? Will the entire school, or just says, will the school be shut down?
So if a staff member or a student gets COVID and has a positive test, the Miami County Public Health Department would take over, and they would begin contact tracing. So they would look at the people that person came into contact with, and the general rule of thumb that I have heard is 6 feet or less distance from someone for 15 minutes or more. But the Miami County Public Health Department will do that contact tracing and will determine who is and who is not quarantined. We would communicate out to the district, to the school community, to the classroom community, what happened there and what that was. But public health department would decide who quarantines and for how long.
Will students be allowed to use playground equipment and play basketball, football, soccer like they have in previous years at recess?
I think the answer to that is yes, with a couple of caveats. We're going to have to clean that equipment much more frequently. Students will be required to wash their hands before and after recess, and we'll have to encourage limited sharing as much as possible. So we don't typically clean the basketballs after every recess. We'll have to do that now.
What about high school choir?
That's one of the big questions we have. I haven't seen any guidance come out about high school choir or band yet. In choir classes, students stand shoulder to shoulder and sing loudly and create more, I'm not sure what you call it, but exhale. The same thing holds true for band, and we are still looking for guidance on how that might work. Those are certainly two of the challenges ahead of us, I think.
If Troy schools do field trips, will kids who are doing online learning get to attend those?
We won't have field trips for the first semester of next year to limit contact with outside agencies and keep the spread minimized.
And we can reassess that again at the semester break. Will the quality of online classes be as good as the in-school classes?
Again, I don't think there's a substitute for in-person learning, those personal connections that are created, but we also understand in the 21st century, many courses, I have children in college, they take many online courses, and I've experienced those myself. So online courses are a part of life, for the college experience especially. So although I can't say you'll have that same personal connection, it needs to be as close as possible.
What if my child is sick or absent? Will I be called and asked to get a COVID test for my child, even if they aren't symptomatic for COVID?
Well, no. If we suspect that a student has symptoms of COVID, we will contact the parents and ask them to contact a family physician and explain why we think that's the case. But we're not going to call parents and ask that. What we are going to ask parents is to be partners with us and to assess their child for symptoms. We will communicate those symptoms very near the start of the school year, and we would also ask, as part of our plan, we also ask that parents check temperatures daily before students report to school. If their child has a temperature greater than 100.4 degrees, their child should stay home, and they should call their family physician.
If a student chooses to go to school in person, but take on any illness with a fever, whether it be COVID or not, and stay home, will the makeup work be easily accessible to the student within virtual learning, or will they just have to wait until they are back in classroom like years past?
That's one of the points of moving to this one-to-one program and having this learning management system, is that let's imagine a scenario where part of a classroom has to be quarantined. 10 students have to be quarantined, 18 students don't have to be. Learning should continue. Those 10 students should still be a part of that classroom environment. So all those learning materials, all those resources are going to be in that learning management system. They would communicate with their teacher as if they were a part of the class, not identically to if they were a part of the class, but because they weren't, still have to communicate with those teachers, because of that learning needs to be as seamless as possible between home and school. That is why we're going to one-to-one. That's why we're going to Canvas.
Can you talk more about the hybrid model? I think they're talking about blended learning, and what that will look like if we have to go to that.
Again, I'm going to kind of refer back to that synchronous and asynchronous learning idea. So in the blended model, if we got to level 3, half of our students would be in school Monday and Tuesday, half of our students would be in school Thursday and Friday, and they would learn online with teacher support the other days. I could see that in that schedule, teachers would have a significant amount of planning and collaboration time, but also would have some time assigned to contact directly the students, to be accessible, office hours if you'll say, to help students with their work. While students are in the online portion of that, so if their days are Thursday and Friday, Monday through Wednesday, they would be following the teacher's links, looking at the learning materials, reading the excerpts, visiting the websites, watching the videos, whatever materials the teacher had created for them. Potentially also even collaborating with fellow students around projects to meet the learning goals, so that when they are in class, they're able to be coached with the teacher alongside them around the work they were supposed to learn, around the content they were supposed to know.
Will the start and end time for the school day remain the same at the various grade levels?
For in-person learning, yes. For the online model of learning, we're looking at different schedules. We referred to the challenges some parents may have with different schedules. So we potentially could have online teachers who are available at different hours, as opposed to the traditional 7:30 to 4 hours.
If my child refuses to wear a mask, will they be denied in-person education?
Well, if a student refuses to wear a mask, then the answer to that is potentially yes. It's a safety issue. For example, we require that our students wear shoes to school. If a student doesn't wear shoes to school, then we would call the parent, ask them to bring shoes for their child, and the child has to put them on. Face coverings would really be no different.
Will there be new desks or tables in the classrooms like kindergarten or first grade? I think they're kind of asking maybe about social distancing and using tables and...
Yeah, maybe not new desks, but principals are actively looking at classroom spaces and determining what to do. Some classrooms have desks, some have tables. I've spoken to some principals about how they might switch tables to different classrooms based on configuration. But I think the larger question is that teachers and principals will be working to establish as much social distancing as possible in classrooms. And if that means changing furniture configurations, then they will do that.
Will we get to pick if this is hybrid, or they keep calling hybrid or blended learning? Will we get to pick if our student is in group A or group B? I think we're actually going to call them red group, gray group, but will they get to pick their group, and will siblings stay on the same schedule?
Siblings will stay on the same schedule, even for households that have different students with different last names in the same household.
Because we're going to divide them alphabetically.
Yeah, we're going to have to divide students alphabetically, essentially, to establish those two groups. We can't just allow a pick. We have 4,200 students in our district, and it would just be impossible to allow all parents to choose which group they want to be a part of. So we're basically going to have to split the students down the middle to look at the alphabet, find where the dividing line is. But then, yes, siblings that are a different last name would be on the same schedule for a household.
In elementary, if a student tests positive, will the class be notified, and will that class be asked to be COVID tested before returning?
So again, if someone tests positive, the Miami County Public Health Department will be in charge of that contact tracing. They will decide who is to be quarantined and who is not. There would be communication coming out to that classroom because of an infectious disease, just like our current protocol is for different things.
I guess this is kind of the same thing. You could test positive and not have any symptoms. By the time someone is symptomatic, it will likely have spread. Will the whole school, including staff, be tested?
Again,
not our decision.
The Miami County Public Health Department is going to take the reins on those.
For junior high, will the students have to be with the same 30 children all year long, or will the class makeup be changed like it used to be based on ability for social studies, math, science, language classes?
I think the junior high does a lot of teaming. I'm not super familiar with the junior high schedule, but I think they do a lot of teaming and our students kind of move in cohorts. I don't expect that to change this year.
The 8th grade DC trip in the second semester, what can you tell them about that?
We're going to work with that company to make sure that's an experience that this class can have. I think this was the class, no, this is the first class that hasn't gone. So it's our goal to still have that trip take place in the spring. It's impossible to know what the country is going to look like, what Washington, D.C. is going to look like in the spring, but we will work with that company to make sure that trip can be taken at a different time, if not next spring.
Yes, if your freshman chooses in person, can they? I guess if we're allowing online students to take classes at the high school, if someone chooses in person, could they then take some of their classes online if they didn't? If they sign up for in person, can they pick and choose certain classes to take online?
I don't think that's the goal that we're trying to accomplish here. I think the goal we're trying to accomplish is to offer those that have health concerns an alternative. So if people have health concerns, again, I would advise anyone who doesn't have those health concerns, those underlying health conditions, to stay in the regular school environment, to use in-classroom instruction. It's probably going to be a better experience, although we hope to make online learning a close second. They should choose to remain in the classroom. If they have those underlying health concerns and issues, then yes, they should choose online learning for any options they can get.
Can you explain why you transferred a 4th teacher at Concord knowing about COVID, and now there will be 30 kids in the classroom and they're supposed to social distance in classroom? How can you support social distancing when they have lost a teacher at Concord?
There are no classrooms in our district that have 30 students in a class. In fact, Concord's class sizes, including 4th grade, are already smaller than some of our other schools. So that's just not the case.
How is preschool included in the plan? They're housed in the Troy School building and service Troy kids and use your bus system. Will it be up to the ESC or will it be a separate plan for them?
The preschool is operated by the ESC, so it will be the ESC's plan. I haven't seen that yet. We will continue to bus our preschoolers.
In the online academy, even if only one student needs in all caps, the class to graduate, will it be offered?
Our students are going to have access to everything they need to graduate, yes.
Okay. Can students wear, this is a good chance to talk about face coverings. Can students wear a face covering of their choice? Neck gaiter, bandana, mask, talk about the mask options.
Essentially, yes, as long as the face covering is made of cloth or is a disposable type and it covers their mouth and nose, then they can wear it. We've received, and it has to fit the spirit of the intention. So if someone comes to school with a mesh face mask, clearly that is not the spirit of the intention. So just like students have to wear shirts to school, they can't wear mesh shirts to school. So the face coverings are really going to follow the same dress code that we use for all things. They can't have obscene writing on them. They have to be appropriate for school. And essentially, they have to cover the mouth and nose.
Can they wear a face shield instead of a face mask?
No, face shields are not a substitute for face masks, according to the Miami County Public Health Department.
Are CCP classes taught at the high school impacted any differently than regular high school classes?
No, I think the same challenge lies for those classes as it does for all others. If we have a large number of students that want to take a college credit plus course online, that's something that we could staff probably.
Will the heat index days be adjusted due to masks? For example, will the same temperature thresholds that used to be in previous years grounds for an early dismissal, will those be changed because of masks?
I think it has to be. I think that we're going to have to lower that threshold to decide when to send students home early or when to cancel school and make it an online learning day. And if we do have to cancel school for heat index, that's what we would do. We would make it an online learning day. It is one of the big challenges ahead of us for our students and our staff members to wear face coverings when the buildings are hot. So we're certainly going to have to lower that heat index number. I'm not sure where that appropriate number lies, but something we'll definitely have to do.
Could you please talk a little bit about busing? Is it likely students will have longer bus rides to and from school?
No, we don't envision that they'll have longer bus rides, and I'm glad that's brought up because one of the things we're going to have to ask parents this year is to be partners with us. Social distancing on buses is one of the greatest challenges I think we face. Some of our buses have fewer students and it's easier. Some of them have more and it's harder. But we can't have more than 2 students per seat on a bus. And so if we can have parents transport their children to school as much as possible, that will help alleviate some of that social distancing concern on buses. We will still provide busing as we have. We do not anticipate that bus routes will be longer, but we have some work to do to see what those numbers look like. There is the potential that if we had to, we might have to go out and run a later route to pick up students that we couldn't fit on a bus otherwise. But again, the more students that can be brought to school, the easier that becomes for us to establish that.
Do you think it's a good idea to come back after Labor Day, considering how many students will be spending time with family, I guess barbecues, that sort of thing, Labor Day weekend?
Well, I think the real challenge for us in this plan, in general terms for all school districts, is balancing the safety and health of our students and staff with regards to the infection spread with the inherent benefit that we know being in school provides. We know that school students, a large part of their socialization, a large part of their mental health is about being in school, so we need to be here for that too. These are all challenging times, and these decisions are not made lightly. But we know that students, at least all the students I have talked to, are anxious to get back in school, and I think many of the parents are anxious to get them back as well. And I know our teachers are anxious to see them, especially after last spring. So we want to see our students as soon as possible. We want to do it safely. Again,
for those who may have missed it the other times we've addressed it earlier in the video, any decisions about quarantine will be decided by Miami County Health. The school will not be making any decisions regarding quarantines for any student or staff. That will be a Miami County Health decision. Live interaction is not the same as live lecture. Why did you decide against live lecture by teachers?
Well, I don't think we have decided against live lecture. That's something that could happen, and I would also argue that lecture isn't the best teaching model necessarily either.
With online school, yes, you can do sports, you can do any extracurricular activities we offer to in-person students will also be offered to online students. If going to Canvas, does that mean Google Classroom won't be used? And if so, is there an app for that? The Classroom app, once I figured it out, helped a lot to be able to see what assignments were needed.
Google Classroom can still be utilized as part of Canvas. Our technology director, I think, is the best analogy. The large Lego blocks, they're called Duplo blocks for younger students. Those are comparable to Google Classroom like the Legos are to Canvas. So Google Classroom is functional and got us through the spring, but Canvas just provides a much deeper learning experience for both users, teacher and student.
Are we expecting the need for regular school supplies, paper, pencils, etc., or will the majority of in-person work be submitted and completed via Chromebooks?
We have already stripped our school supply list down significantly this year and the last couple of years to just reduce the need for parents to provide those materials. So school supply lists remain the same. There will be a use of those materials, but also a lot of our learning will occur through those online platforms.
Can a junior high student also come in for honors English if they're in it, but it isn't offered? So basically, can junior high students, if there's a course not offered, can they do like high school students?
Yes,
Okay.
if they can get transportation.
I don't know if she's watching. Last spring, the junior high speech teacher did a fabulous job of online speech therapy. I was so impressed. Thank you. We appreciate that, and we'll make sure that she knows that as well. This is kind of a long one. If my child is signed up for in-person schooling and is absent due to illness, will missed assignments be handled as it? No, they will be able to do them on the Chromebooks. Correct?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. Trying to get through these as quickly as I can. Again, the quarantine process will be decided by Miami County Health, not by us. A student on an IEP we've discussed. Please, let's go back several times earlier in the video. Kindergarten screening. We talked about that this morning. I don't think we've got that this evening yet.
That was a question asked this morning. We've talked to our K-6 curriculum director. That information should be on the website this week or early next week about screening processes and dates.
Will this be posted for watching the whole thing later? Yes. It will. The morning session is still on there. Once we get an opportunity, we'll also upload it onto YouTube and onto our website. I can answer that.
And Mr. Fong also has a list of frequently asked questions that he's compiling, so please check those resources out as well.
Those will be available probably middle of this week. If a child comes to school without a mask, will one be provided? If they forget one, can't afford one, etc.
Yes, we're going to have a supply of disposable masks, so if we pull up to a bus stop and a student is there without a mask, we won't leave them on the curb. They're going to get on the bus, they're going to come to school. We'll be expected to use that mask throughout the day, but parents should also provide masks for their students.
Transportation to the UVCC.
Yes.
What will happen with that?
We will still provide transportation to Upper Valley Career Center.
Okay.
And students who attend Upper Valley will follow Upper Valley's plan, not the Troy High School plan.
But we will provide the transportation regardless of their plan. Yes. Has the school looked into renting tents to use as classrooms?
We have not.
I can answer this. If a student has 3 students, will they in 3 different grades? Every student in Troy will receive a Chromebook, will be loaned a Chromebook this year, regardless of grade level. Is that correct?
K through 12, yes.
Yes. The plan for once the students get on the bus is currently on her daughter's bus route there are 3 to a seat. That will not be the case this year.
The only time we would have 3 to a seat is if those students were from the same household.
Okay. I've been in contact with the BOE, but if some kids opt for online learning, will that leave a space open for someone trying to open enroll for another school?
No, our open enrollment process is completed, so no.
If we're able to transport our kids on our own part of the time, can they also still ride the bus when they can't transport them?
Yeah, I think we might send a survey out to our parents in a couple of weeks asking who can who can we take off of our transportation roll, just to give us a better idea of how to establish those routes. But yes, we're still going to provide busing, and if a child needs to be bused to school, they can still go on the school bus. Anything parents can do to help alleviate that, we appreciate, but we'll still bus them.
If the DC trip does happen, it will be available. Will it be available for online students? Can they still go on the DC trip if it happens?
Certainly.
Okay. Can you tell us now how many people have signed up for online learning? You said the last we knew 290.
294 district-wide, that's K through 12 as of this afternoon. 58, I think, were high school students.
Will a student be able to bring a water bottle and drink it as needed? You may also want to talk about water fountains.
Yes. So one of the things we're doing this summer to prepare for next school year is we're installing bottle fillers in all of our buildings. Water fountains will be turned off, but we'll ask students to bring water bottles and use the bottle fillers. They're safer with infection.
Can students walk or bike to school but use the bus on bad weather days? Yes. Someone says there is a Canvas app. It is really user-friendly. I did an entire master's program remotely at Miami using Canvas. What happens if Miami County gets overwhelmed? I think they're maybe talking about Miami County Health. And it takes days to get info, and by then more people have been infected.
This is what Miami County Public Health does, and I think they'll be pretty responsive. I've been very pleasantly surprised with how accessible Miami County Public Health has been throughout this whole process. Even last spring, when they were dealing with all local businesses, they have been very responsive to the school with our graduation plans, with our return to school plans. So there has never been a time where I've called Miami County Public Health and haven't gotten a call back immediately.
This may be a question more for the Ohio High School Athletic Association, but we'll ask it here. For sports such as volleyball that have been deemed non-contact, can they expect to travel to other schools for games like last year, and will parents be able to attend those games?
Yes, the league, I think, is going to send out some guidelines, and capacity will be essentially 50% capacity for stadiums and for gyms. Typically, that shouldn't preclude anyone from attending a volleyball game, as we're not typically close to capacity. Yes, if everything keeps moving forward as it is and numbers stay the same as they are now, we intend to play those contests. Who knows what the future may bring, but that's our intention as of today. And yes, parents would be able to attend those, especially if we are in levels 1, 2, and 3. I know the league athletic directors are working on more guidance for what those levels might look like.
The band has released its policies and procedures. Has this not been reviewed by the administration?
We have taken a look at the band camp procedures that is coming up soon, if not already this week, but we haven't talked about classroom instruction yet for band.
What if a junior high student does better with math in class, so if they do online, could they go to school for math only?
So I would encourage that parent to contact the junior high principal and to register their child for online learning.
Will we still be accessing grades via Power School, or can they also do it through the Canvas system?
I think that will come through Power School. I think Canvas links directly to Power School, but I'm not sure if you can see grades in Canvas.
Will online academy students still have the same school fees as in-person learners?
Yes. And I want to remind everyone that students are going to be receiving a Chromebook this year. School fees are $30. Over the course of a school career here in Troy, it is very likely that a student who attends K through 12 is going to receive 3 new Chromebooks during their time here. Our student fees are the lowest in the area and do not come close to even paying for Chromebooks.
What is the insurance looking like for Chromebooks? Are parents responsible for damages?
Parents won't be held responsible for accidental damages. I think we're going to offer insurance for other events, but more information should be coming out. Our tech department has been working very hard. They have a lot of work to do as we gear up for this one-to-one initiative with this new learning platform, but that information will be coming soon.
Again, we would like to emphasize that that extracurricular activities will be offered to any and all online students. We don't know when the DC trip will be canceled or not. If there is fundraising done, will they get their money back?
Well, it would be our intention that they would take that trip. Hopefully next spring. If not, then possibly during the freshman school year. We'll work with that company who has a very good track record. Of course, a global pandemic has never happened before during Washington, D.C. trip seasons. So, but that's a company that we've worked closely with and will continue to do so.
Is there a plan for students to receive lunch if they're doing online learning?
Yes. Students who are free and reduced lunch students will also get those lunches at no charge to them. Other students, I don't think we'd be offering lunches for purchase, but we would be providing those for those students who have free and reduced lunches.
Here's something we like to hear. Just wanted to say thank you for providing these two opportunities today for our parents to learn more. Our experience last spring when everyone switched to online was positive. The Haywood staff did an amazing job communicating and making sure students were engaged with online learning. Once again, speech therapy was also very impressive and thorough. Thank you for having a resilient staff.
We do, and we're very proud of them.
Is there a minimum number of children enrolling online for classes to be available? Say if there... Sorry, hold on, it flipped on me. Say if there are only 25 third graders across the entire district, is it still available even though the number is low?
Yeah, I don't see 25 as a low number. We would certainly provide that learning opportunity for all of our elementary. Elementary is much easier to establish those numbers than high school. Where it really gets trickier, those high school, very specific elective courses, that's where it really gets tricky.
And for the elementary, students who would typically attend Concord or Kyle or Cookson in person could all be learning together online. Something like that probably most likely is going to happen.
I would say definitely.
Is there a chance they can go 2 days a week and online the other 3 days instead of picking one of the... I think they're talking about, can they choose the blended model?
No, we can't work to that degree.
Will the Chromebook come with a protective case, or should we obtain one on our own, and if so, what size, etc.?
I think that parents can. From experience, my children had Chromebooks and had cases and never used them. I think backpacks are a fine alternative. I know that many of our students have backpacks they come to school with. I would encourage parents just to have students drop them in there.
Is there an extreme low number for a certain grade? And I don't think, judging by the numbers we have, that's not going to be an issue, is it? We have enough students at each grade level to fill an entire class. It's not like we have 2 second graders in the entire district or anything.
No. Our below, and I'll even include junior high in this, below junior high, but probably also including junior high, we have high enough numbers already to ensure that we're going to have online learning for those students. When we talk about particular courses, we are really talking high school specific. So again, it's those very specific elective high school courses that are really the challenge. Those are the ones I'm mostly talking about when I talk about driven by numbers.
Concord has really big class sizes, making it difficult to do the 6 feet distance in classrooms. Has there been discussions about moving the ESL students to another building to help reduce class sizes?
No.
Or not allow open enrollment to Concord?
We already disallow open enrollment to any of our buildings that are at or near capacity. So that's a district-wide thing. And I don't think Concord has accepted any open enrollment students this year and maybe even last. Many of our ELL students live in the Concord area. So no, we're not going to move those students to different schools. And I would also add again that the Concord class sizes are not significantly different than any of our class sizes in our other buildings.
Since the county color code changes midweek, usually Thursday, but it's also been Wednesday and Tuesdays, will our model plan shift midweek, or would we wait until the next Monday?
I think it's very likely we would wait till the next Monday. I think recently those have been coming out on Thursdays, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. Predominantly on Thursdays, but not exclusively on Thursdays. And it's usually Thursday afternoon toward the end of the school day, so it would just be a matter of finishing out one day. Thank you, Mr. Piper and Mr. Fong, for your patience and guidance in providing information to the students and community. What a crazy and uncertain time. Thank you for your support and info in guiding students, teachers, and families. And right now, we can end on a high note.
Okay.
That's the last question that we have received. So thank you very much. We appreciate hearing that.
I think we covered a lot tonight. We know that many questions remain. Again, there are many details to work out, especially individual school buildings for what those procedures will look like. We have a subcommittee meeting on cleaning and sanitizing procedures. different classroom procedures, lunchroom procedures. There's a lot of work to do that will get done, and much of that communication will come directly from building principals. I would encourage people to check out those online resources. They're there, they're pretty thorough. The registration for online learning remains open through the 31st. And if you have additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out. You can email us at info@troycityschools.org. Check our website, give us a call, let us know what's on your mind and what questions you have still.
Looks like we got a late arriving question or two.
One more. Okay.
Okay. Can you explain how Canvas is better than Google Classroom? How is remote learning, for the case if we were to go to Purple, substantially different than last year's remote learning? I'm not understanding how this year's remote learning is better than last spring.
Well, it's going to be different than last spring. Referring back to the Google versus Canvas question, I described the Duplo block versus the Lego block. It's a much richer, deeper experience interface. Many colleges and universities use this. Many K-12 schools across the state are jumping on this. High-quality schools that do a great job with student learning. So I think when parents see the Canvas model versus the Google Classroom, and again, Canvas can use Google Classroom components in it, but they're going to see in a very short time that it's just a much deeper, richer experience. In terms of online learning and what it might look like this year, the simple answer is that last year we designed instruction in online learning in a matter of 2 weeks and did a great job with it, but it certainly wasn't perfect. And there are many challenges with online learning. I received phone calls in this office from parents that had children in the same classroom, and one parent was telling me that it was just too much, it was too hard, they couldn't do it, and a different parent was saying that it was just not hard enough, it wasn't rigorous enough, and they were dissatisfied in that way. And their children had the same teacher. So children are different. We need to personalize as much as possible. And the quick answer with why this year is better is because we're going to have more time to work with our teachers, to get our minds around online learning. We shifted education entirely on its head in a matter of 2 weeks last year. Certainly wasn't perfect. It was very good. With more time comes more quality. It'll be a whole different experience this time.
And I think that will bring an end to our questions for this evening. Superintendent Piper, if you have anything else to say?
I just appreciate people joining us, asking questions, and again, if you have questions in the future, don't hesitate to reach out to us and ask them.
Yes, we will have lunches, specials, and recess next year.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Have a good evening. Thank you.